From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up, wake up.
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's. I'm Aslan Hajavandi. He is Corey Clark. We work for Warchant.com. The promo is ongoing. Use it if you're not a member of the Ultimate Seminole Sports Source. The promo code, of course, is FSU New Era. Gets you 50% off an annual membership for new subscribers to Warchant.com. Who will be leading that new era? I'm sure we'll try to talk about that and plenty more on the show today. But first, let's welcome in Corey Clark. Running big, rolling deep. Heavy hitter, big roller, Corey Clark, triumphantly leaving Biloxi. Tell us all about your weekend, friend.
No, it didn't go all that well at the tables. I didn't lose any more than I brought.
Okay.
So I feel like that's a win. I didn't have to get any more money out. So other than that, no, not great at the tables. I did win a couple of sports bets, including putting 13 points on the Texas A&M Aggies, because I figured they'd keep that close. So that worked out perfectly. Other than that, though, just a good time, good friends, but no money won. The lady next to me hit a royal flush at Pygal and won $1,300.
What?
On a $5 bet. Yeah, she won $1,300, and I got, everybody at the table got $50. So that was my big win.
Dude, that's awesome. Stephanie must be, floating on cloud nine right now. Tell her congrats.
Yeah, no, not her. Another dame I'm seeing in Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
I like to keep one in each state. You know that.
Oh, my gosh, Corey. You're the worst. You are the worst.
What I didn't realize at the time, she actually was wearing a Georgia visor.
Oh.
So that was cool that she was sitting next to me wearing a Georgia visor, but she was there with her boyfriend, so there were no sparks.
Okay, I got you. Fair enough. That's a bummer. What's not a bummer, though, is treating yourself to some great food. Our friends at Zaxby's, the two promos are ongoing with the Smokehouse Cheddar Filet Sandwich and the Chipotle Southwestern Filet Sandwich as well. Corey and I will not be able to eat Zaxby's together on Thanksgiving, but once we do reconnect, once again, it will be breaking bread, courtesy of our great friends at Zaxby's. It's indescribably good. I spend a minute about every show trying to describe how good it is, but it's just really that good. Check it out. Go on over there. Get your poultry fix before Thanksgiving rolls in. I don't know what we're going to do for this week, Corey. We're obviously doing a show on Monday. We'll do one tomorrow as well for Tuesday. And we maybe might do one on Wednesday. Not 100% sure on that, but we'll see how it goes. I haven't watched enough tape yet on Florida to really break down the Gators. I'm going to start my game prep, my film study tonight as things wind down here on Sunday as we record this for you folks on Monday. But, Corey, as we're here, there's no coach formally announced for Florida State. There are some nuggets that Gene Williams has been able to source and unearth for you folks on Warchant.com. We won't totally spoil that sort of stuff, but it's probably worth discussing it to a certain degree. I don't know if when we get together in a week there will be a new head coach, but I would think within the next 8 days of us talking right now in this moment, there will be a head coach announced for Florida State in terms of the head football. You agree? Disagree?
I don't know if 8 days, but I would say no more than 12 days.
Ooh.
I think it might be in that sweet 9 to 12 day area from when you are hearing my voice, that they will have a new coach. I think it'll be in the middle of the week. That's just my thinking.
Okay.
Is it'll be in the middle of the week after the Florida game.
All right, yeah, I would like to think that Monday. I like to think Odell will get, 48 hours to bask in his glory of defeating, or maybe 36 hours of defeating the Gators, big upset win in Gainesville, and then we can slowly kind of break it to him that, we want you to stay, just not in this capacity, but please stay, don't leave, it'll hurt us to the core. And then I'm hoping on Monday, Sunday, I hope in 7 days as we're recording this, we're going to get that email. Florida State's athletics director David Coburn announces a press conference on Monday to discuss the Florida State head football coach position. And I'm hoping that on Monday, which was, I can't even do the math on it, so I'm not even going to bother, but December, whatever that would be, that's my hope on it. What we do know is that Mark Stoops will not be the next head football coach at Florida State. Apparently he took his name out of the running or said something to that effect after his game on Saturday that he's no longer, he's not leaving, or however he put it. I kind of took a little bit of a good exhale. Feel good. No offense, Mark. Good guy, good human being, I'm sure. But, I think some of the names out there that remain in Gene's nuggets on his hot board are not, quote, splash hires, but I still see huge upside to them. I never quite got the splash feeling nor the upside from a Mark Stoops. Your thoughts, I guess, on Florida State and him moving in different directions now?
Yeah, I mean, when coaches say that they're staying, or the word comes out that they've taken their name out of the running, that means that they were almost certainly told, hey man, it ain't going to be you. I just think, we've talked a lot about Mark Stoops and whether he would do a good job at Florida State. I don't doubt that he would run a quality program. I don't know that it would be a national championship caliber one, but I think he could turn it around into a consistently winning one. But I don't know about the optics of going after Bob, who's the best Stoops. We all agree.
Yes.
And then that doesn't work out, so you go get his brother. I just don't know. The optics of that might not be the best. So I don't really think that had much to do with it. But I think just from an outside perspective, I thought that would have been a little bit touchy. Not touchy, but I don't know, just a little odd to be like, okay, well, we couldn't get Newt Rockne. So does Newt Rockne have a brother like Bill? Is there a Bill Rockne out there that we can get? Like that to me was how it kind of would have looked a little bit.
Yeah, where do you stand on Bob then? Do you read anything into the Mark interest now being done as it having to portend to do with anything with the greater Stoops, which is Robert, Bob, Big Game Bob, BGB?
No, no, I don't. I don't have any inside knowledge, and everything else would just be speculation. I mean, I would not be stunned if his name is still in the mix by any stretch. I mean, I think there's still a chance that that's happening. Not happening that he's going to be hired, but happening that his name is still out there, that maybe the ball a little bit is still even in his court. Like maybe he's got another few days to say, absolutely no, I'm not doing this, or you know what, I do want to do it. But no, I don't know that one really has to do with the other. I just think that I don't think anybody officially has accepted the job yet. So if that's not the case, then yeah, I think Bob is at least still somewhere in the mix, at least from Florida State's concerned. I don't think Stoops could if he called them back later on today and said, you know what, I've decided I do want to take that job. I don't think Coburn would be like, no, what, man, no. You missed your chance. Sorry. Good luck in the XFL, partner. I think they would listen to Bob if he called back.
Would Florida State fans riot if that happened? If he did call Coburn and was like, you know what, actually I changed my mind, I want in, and David Coburn was like, man, this is not a good sign. We appreciate the interest now, but it just doesn't seem like that's a move in the best interest of our program. Like if that, again, these are totally speculative things of nature.
If that came out, like, yeah, that Stoops called up and Coburn was like, nah, man, we're good. We're good. We're chasing, one of the Big 12 boys. Yeah, man, of course they would be like, what do you? But I don't think Coburn would do that. Yeah. I do think that if it had gone back and forth whether he wanted it or didn't want it, not like he wants to stay at Oklahoma. We're not asking. Florida State's not asking a guy to leave a great program to come coach. Those can be difficult decisions, and there have been coaches in the past that have decided to go and then thought better of it and stayed. I talked about it. Glenn Mason at Kansas took the Georgia job, and then 2 days later said, no, I want to stay at Kansas. Bobby Crimmins, when he was the basketball coach at Georgia Tech, took the head coaching job at South Carolina, and then a day or two later changed his mind and went back to Georgia Tech. So it's not like they're asking him to leave Oklahoma. They're asking somebody that's not currently in coaching. He's not leaving anything. So if he can't fully commit to not, it's not like he's turning his back on kids at Oklahoma. He really is having a crisis, a crisis of career in whether he wants to even be a head coach. Not just be a head coach at Florida State, but just be a head coach again. I mean, yeah, that would be a little concerning when you're going to be giving him the moon that you're not sure if he's really completely interested in it. I think that would be a little concerning.
I just heard some screeching. Is everything okay out there on the roads?
I just ran over someone.
Gosh.
So we're good. Nobody saw me.
I know a couple good lawyers.
And he looked like he was all right. He just kind of limped off.
Right on.
Man, I think I'm getting caught in this can't be Falcons traffic. I don't know what this traffic is, but holy moly, this doesn't look good.
Oh man, drink it in. I want to stake my entire professional reputation, whatever that means, or however much there is, to this. I just want to roast all these Stoops truthers. Not because I don't want to dream a little dream with all of them and think that Bob Stoops is going to come to Tallahassee, because that would be great. That'd be a great hire, and just across the board. I just don't get how could this come to fruition at this point? I mean, it's had to have been at least 2 weeks of back and forth. Like an offer was extended, an offer was rebuffed. I don't know how you could accept an offer, how there could be any of this sort of secretive smoke screen. I get Glenn Sugiyama has his own MO when it comes to running coaching searches, but man, a lot leaked. His whole thing is there's no leaks, everything's quiet, et cetera, et cetera. Man, there was a lot of smoke billowing from the Mark Stoops smokestack. So for this to come, it just nothing would make sense to me. And people were kind of giving Gene a hard time on the message boards about, well, if Stoops ends up getting hired, he doesn't get hired, Gene can be like, hey, listen, I told you guys all along this wasn't happening. But if he does get hired, Gene could say, well, there were some indications late in the game that this might happen. Like, I don't know none of that would add up to me. Like, there's nothing out there. There's no calculus that adds up to the fact that Bob Stoops wants this job, but he can't accept it at this time, or that it can't be leaked, or it's been able to be kept under wraps because X, Y, and Z. Like, nothing would add up to me. Like, nothing could add up to me. And I don't know, is there anything in your mind, and I hate to keep talking about it, because I think it's almost kind of ridiculous at this point to talk about Bob Stoops as being a candidate, but is there anything in your mind, like not conspiracy theory, but is there anything practical that could add up to why people believe this, and maybe Bob Stoops still is viable and in the thick of this? Because I don't think he is.
No, nothing to me adds up. Like, there's nothing to gain on either side by delaying if he had agreed in principle to the deal, why would you delay announcing that? It would be some great pub for your university. It would make Florida State relevant again, right in the middle of all this playoff talk and championship game talk. You'd have, and going into a game that you're probably going to lose severely, it would be a nice little, shot in the arm for the program, a great shot in the arm. So I don't understand why Bob Stoops, again, what is he scared the XFL would, he don't want to anger the Renegades fans. Like, there's nothing really to gain there. To me anyway, there's no real reason why you would be completely throwing everybody for a loop and throwing them off the scent. Who cares if they're on the scent? If he's the guy, it's not like he's coaching a team that's about to play in a bowl game or something. That it really wouldn't make a lot of sense. I don't. The only thing I could think is that maybe he's thinking about another job as well. And they're waiting to see if that comes open, and he might have told Florida State, this is complete speculation, but hey, man, if that job doesn't come open, I definitely want to coach you guys. But other than that, and even that, I don't think Florida State would just wait around.
Oh, absolutely not.
But other than that, I can't even imagine why you would do it. Why you would? You don't want to like Trump Thanksgiving. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't want to announce it now if he was actually the guy. Like, what's the point of throwing people off? I would get it if it was Campbell or Rule, because they got games to coach, big games to coach. But Bob Stoops has nothing to do. So, yeah, no, I would say the chances of that, like the Stoops truthers being, like that this is all some elaborate ploy, wouldn't that feel like that's about an 8 to 10% chance of happening?
At
Maybe.
the most.
I mean, I wouldn't get the reason for it.
Yeah, again, because I just don't, this is not me trying to sound like a know-it-all, because I don't know it all, or else I would tell you who the next head coach is going to be. But nothing would make sense in terms of keeping things under wraps, or because this is a legitimate search going on. There's other candidates they're having to vet, and if you know it's going to be Bob, there's no way it keeps going on this long. You're not still flying around and visiting people. It would have been announced, and and I think there's a certain point to where you're on to next guys, because you can't keep the door open for him, and there might have been a window for that, but I think it's over. But Saturday was interesting, I think, because there's some of the coaches' names that are being floated out there were involved in kind of close contests, good wins, I think. Well, not maybe good wins, but I just think it was kind of funny to watch the way the message boards kind of react to the Stoops truthers are still hanging on, and then you got people starting to look now at Iowa State games, looking at Baylor games and seeing how they're playing. And, like, I'm checking my phone because I'm away from a TV, and I'm like, man, please don't let Matt Campbell lose to Kansas, because we had somebody give us grief about, why don't you guys consider Les Miles? I'm like, watch if, like, Les Miles beats Matt Campbell, it's going to be like, see, this is an indictment on Matt Campbell being a candidate. Or if Matt Rule loses to Texas, it's like, yeah, you want this guy that can't beat Texas to be the next head coach. I just hope, I guess that the long story short on that is, man, I do hope it's like the next 7-8 days, because I can't take any more of it. As a fan almost, just the anxiety of it, but also the back and forth arguing about this guy's not good enough, this guy isn't, this guy is. Because to the point that we talked about, we'll get to the rest of these questions that we didn't finish up on the last show that we did, the Renegade Express edition of the program. Like your Gary Pattersons, your Les Miles, your Mark Stoops. I just think they've coached for long enough that I think that the sort of book on them is written. And why I've kind of moved past the Bob Stoops thing as well is that obviously, not so much his career is etched in stone. That's what it is, because he's got the national title. He's competed for national titles. You would welcome that stuff with open arms. But what they were going to have to offer him, I can't even imagine the back and forth and what he ultimately walked away from. I can't imagine they offered him anything less than $7 million a year. I could totally envision them offering him either some sort of say-so in the athletic director hiring, or maybe he could even be the athletic director after a certain amount of time. Probably would want to bring in at least one of his brothers. Probably Mike would have to come along with him. All these things they would have had to give into him. And we said he's as closest thing to a slam dunk, but there's no guarantee he would win a national title. So you've given him all this. There's all these expectations. And then even if he wins 10 games, which is a great hallmark, is a great benchmark to go and achieve, it's still not worth $7.5 million a year, bringing on a lesser tier coach to be on the staff simply because he's your brother, and you get say-so and how the entire athletic department is going to be run. I would rather take a chance on a guy like a Matt Rule, who's only been doing this for 6 years at 2 different stops, so he's never really been able to fully form and build a program on a big level and watch it take off, or a guy like a Matt Campbell who's only been doing it at the Power 5 level for 4 years. The upside to me sort of outweighs the amount of financial investment you're going to have to make for, again, something that's not going to be guaranteed, which is national championships.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, there's only 2 coaches breathing who Florida State could give the world to and know that within a few years they'll be playing for a national championship, and that's Saban and Urban. And you're not getting Urban, and you're obviously not getting Saban. Stoops is right below them. I don't think he's as good as them, and I think the difference, if people want to know what the difference is that they've done it. They won national championships at 2 different places. And Urban built undefeated teams I guess Florida never had an undefeated season. Sorry, never. Urban. Sorry, never. Gators. Never had one. But he had an undefeated season at Utah, too. So he's done it in multiple places. Saban has done it in multiple places. Stoops did it at one place. Now, he was awesome at that one place. But those 2 guys, I would have no doubt in my mind. Nobody would. It's not like I'm a genius for thinking this. Yeah. If Urban Meyer or Nick Saban came to Florida State, they'd have a national championship contender within 2 or 3 years. They just have they know how to do it. I think Stoops is in close to that category. But no, he's not as sure a thing as those 2 guys. And, again, if you're having to give a guy the moon, if you're offering him literally everything, yeah, your brother can come and coach. Oh, you want your wife to be the play-by-play announcer? Sure, whatever. Gene's getting up there anyway. Like any wild demands that he made, if you acquiesce to them and then he's still not sure he wants to do it, then do you want that guy? So we probably spent too much time talking about Bob Stoops anyway. But, yeah, I could see where you'd want after a certain point. You're like, man, if his heart's not really in it, if you're having to go over the top, like crazy over the top, at a place like Florida State, you don't need to do that, I don't think. They won a national title with Jimbo Fisher, man. I know he's your guy. He's a pretty good coach, right? You don't think he's elite. He's not on the level of Saban and Urban Meyer or Bob Stoops, and they won a national championship with him. There's plenty of coaches out there they can win national championships with, in my opinion. You don't have to go over the top, over the moon, to try to get Bob Stoops to wrestle him out of retirement.
Yeah. And again, that's the conjecture is the fact that, there's vacillation going on of does he want, does he not want. Again, I think that there was an offer extended at some point. It didn't happen. Here we are, but we continue to talk about him. And to your point, probably talk too much about him. So to that point, the other guys that are out there, like how much did you catch yourself, I don't know, box score watching, or I don't know how, if you're just busy at the tables. I didn't get to watch enough football at all on Saturday. I only got to catch the Pac-12 games at the end of the night. But like, how much are you starting to look at these other coaches now? Like, did you try to watch Penn State, Ohio State a little more closely to see what James Franklin was about, or the Baylor-Texas game to see what Matt Rule's cooking? I mean, what are you trying to base your
No, I didn't. Honestly, I was watching I was losing money for the first half of the Georgia A&M game, and then I went and watched the second half in the sports book so I could collect my winnings. And then I saw the Baylor game was on, so I would watch that occasionally. I don't think they had the Iowa State game on, but I saw they won whatever that was, like 40-30. And then I saw that Baylor beat Texas handily, right?
Yeah, like 24-7, something like that, I think.
Yeah, or 20. I know Texas had had one score late in the game. Yeah, I mean, I don't watch them like, okay, is this guy fit? Was this guy's style fit? I mean, I just think the results for both those guys, and I'm just getting more and more sold on Rule. I know they really got lucky, pretty lucky to have the record they had. Oh no, that was Minnesota. Baylor's won some close games, and
they have.
They've won a couple, I think, in overtime. Mm-hmm. They've had some things really go their way. But my man, again, he's won 10 games twice before. He took a team that was 1-11 or 2-10 or something a couple years ago, and now they're 10-1. Mm-hmm. Their only loss is by a point to Oklahoma when they had a 28-3 lead, and then they just beat Texas. And again, I know it's not a great Texas team, but it was a top 10 before the season started, and Texas has more talent than Baylor. And he's out there. Those kids are cruising to wins over Texas. I mean, that to me, man, that's a guy that again he's done it at two different places. He's done it in a big conference. Man, to me, he kind of checks. He's not old. He checks a lot of the boxes if you want to make a run at him. And he's at Baylor, and he does not want to be at Baylor forever. I can promise you that. So that guy, and Campbell too. Campbell again because of the company that Florida State would keep. Because his name keeps coming up for like NFL jobs and it was like we talked about. His name was mentioned for an possible Ohio State job. So the people that know are the people that get paid to know who like the future great coaches are. All think he's that guy. So those two guys I think would be great. Either one of them. Honestly, I don't really have a preference. I think either one of them would be great. And my man Venables is still my guy too. But who knows with him? Again, he's a baby and he doesn't want to be a head coach.
Oklahoma beat Baylor by 3. Oklahoma beat my boy Matt Campbell by 1. But point remains, one possession game obviously for Baylor. They did clinch one of the spots in the Big 12 championship game, so they will get to rematch Oklahoma 2 weeks from now, or 2-ish weeks, or what have you. They got to finish up business with Kansas. So I wonder if that maybe throws.
So I wonder what that would mean if just spitballing, speculating. Yeah. If they did want him to be the head coach, would he leave before the conference championship game?
Oh, man, can you? I mean, because maybe if you win the conference championship game, maybe you sneak into the playoff. Yeah, so maybe we all need to root for Les Miles to beat Baylor this week.
No, I don't think he'd get to the playoff even if they won. But I do think that I don't know that he would if he would leave his team with a week before the week of the conference championship game.
Yeah, that would be pretty crazy. But I don't know. I guess, part of me is maybe I missed out on the whole Taggart enthusiasm the first time around because, I did like Jimbo. I like Jimbo's sort of temperament. I like him being kind of irascible and abrasive and stuff. Like, I feel like that's what my football coach needs to be to a large degree. Shout out to Jeremy Pruitt yoking up one of his players again. Big win on the road for the Vols. Who's laughing now? They're going to a bowl game. And that almost goes back to the point, too, where everyone's watching every single game now of Iowa State or Baylor or Penn State, and it's like, this is the guy you want to be the next Florida State head coach? We're all sitting here making fun of Jeremy Pruitt 8 weeks ago when they lose to BYU, and they've actually kind of rounded out the season pretty strongly. So the week-to-week thing is pretty bizarre. But with the whole – I think everybody really started imagining, like, the best possible scenario that Willie Taggart could be, and I never really kind of fully put my arms around that. I just didn't know if the whole, I'm going to make guys just play out of love for me, and we're all going to get along so well that it's going to be this great vibe, and we're going to play loose, and we're going to play together, and that's what's going to be able to push us over the top. That to me doesn't seem like a recipe to win football games long term. But Matt Campbell, Matt Rule, I get it, man. There's nothing, there's no slam dunk, there's no guarantees. But I don't know, I guess for some reason, me, the cynical guy, I just see so much more optimism and hope with guys like that. Maybe even more so than James Franklin. But I feel like people talk about James Franklin as being the more sure thing, the higher upside than guys like Rule and Campbell. And I don't buy that at all. He's been 2 places. I think he's close now to being 10 years in the game of being a head coach. And I know Vanderbilt, you've got absolutely no shot of doing it. In Penn State, he's gotten them to the Rose Bowl a few times. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm seeing nothing. I'm blinders on when it comes to the Mats in the Big 12. I just see nothing but the good that they could possibly accomplish. And that's what's got me excited about maybe one of them sneaking into it. I guess James Franklin might be still in the mix as well. So you feel he's as strong a candidate as any. He's just kind of he's like if Stoops is 1A, then James Franklin's like a level below that in terms of elite level coaches. Or is that words in your mouth? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, I think he's right there, man. Penn State was the end of the Paterno era was so gross for a variety of reasons, including on-field performance, but obviously not most importantly. But it was gross for a lot of reasons, and that was a wounded program. They had a lot of there was nothing positive about that program at all. It was a hard sell because it had been. Man, when he took over, it had been a quarter century since Penn State had won a national championship. So we still knew the name. They were still a name, but they hadn't really accomplished a ton. And then with everything going around it, for him to turn that program into a top 10, 12 caliber program perennially, to me is just really, because it's a real conference. That's something that he can do. He's proven that he can do it. These guys Rule and Campbell, nobody doubts their coaching acumen. I don't think they've proven they can coach, but they have not proven that they can create a perennial top 10 program at a power. Again, they haven't had that chance, but Franklin has had that chance, and in my opinion, he's succeeded. That's a really good program, and it wasn't a decade ago.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm still rolling with the Big 12 Mats.
All right, hey, I'm with you. It's the fear of the it's not even a fear of the unknown
No.
with you. It's like you're excited about the unknown. If you played Let's Make a Deal, it wouldn't matter if they gave you a car.
Yeah.
You'd be like, you know what? I want to see what's behind curtain number 3. That might be a building.
A dilapidated building in downtown Dothan, Alabama. I'll take it. Sign me up, man. Again, a lot of it is just kind of like blind optimism, blind hope, and I think a lot of people had that when it came to Taggart. I do think we've talked about the reasons why Campbell and Rule don't kind of fall into that same category because they have been winning at a Power 5 level. Willie had the 1 year at Oregon, and again, I get it. He's 8-5 by and large. Matt Campbell, how are you going to get excited about 8-5? But I think all the things that people would point to with Willie. And I think a lot of it was like, well, he will eventually at some point recruit at a really high level, and then it's game over. Like, man, to instantly kind of turn around Iowa State, which what Matt Campbell has done, you can win 10 wins. You can win 10 games in the ACC. I mean, I would think I'd be hard pressed to think that you couldn't win 10 games in the ACC by year 2. If you can go from 3-9 in year 1 in Ames, Iowa, to 8-5, and you're beating the Heisman Trophy winner. The Big 12 conference champion, the team that goes to the playoff and went blow for blow with the national runner-up Georgia that season. That's the kind of stuff I think that can translate to when you're going to have everything in place for you in Tallahassee. So that's where I'm with those guys. We will continue, obviously, to monitor the head coaching situation. By we, mainly Gene. Ira working it as well. So do check out their work on warchant.com, the promo code FSU New Era. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and get back to the rest of the questions from the Renegade Express that we didn't get to finish last week. That's coming up next on Wake Up Warchant presented by Zaxby's. Welcome back. It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Zaxby's. I'm Aslan. He is Corey. He's driving back to Atlanta. He'll be enjoying Thanksgiving in the A. I think I'm going back to the Clearwater area to enjoy my Thanksgiving. We'll try to do at least one more show this week, if not 2. With that said, let's finish up what we did last week in the Renegade Express. This question comes from, we had Georgia 2OK Noel, but he's asked about Mark Stoops, which is no longer relevant. So we go to random_John, which is kind of weird. He's a random John, which, in law enforcement jargon isn't probably not the best sort of name, but anyhow, I'm rambling.
Correct.
Greetings
right. That's
and salutations, gentlemen. I feel like our coaching search has been like a bad Tinder date. We swiped right on the pretty coach, and it was a match. We asked the pretty coach what an ideal date would look like, and by golly, we stepped up to the plate to create that perfect date. The day comes for the date. We show up to the door, all excited. The pretty coach says, change my mind. I'm going to go out with this dirty biker XFL guy because that seems like a long-lasting, sustainable relationship. Good luck. Hopefully we can still be friends. You're cute. We go home swiping right on some also-ran coaches and put some who may have potential, but it's a crapshoot. We close our eyes, put on the Bowden Dynasty documentary, make a wish, hope that whomever we match is good for us. So, guys, of the also-ran coaches that are left on the board, who do you feel will bruise our ego the least? Corey Clark, begin.
So, very good analogy there.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I would say it. But Bob Stoops, again, that's like swiping right on Mila Kunis. I mean, you got to shoot your shot.
Yeah.
You gave it a go with Bob Stoops. Nobody can get upset by that. And if Mila Kunis wants to date a dirty biker or Ashton Kutcher, then that's her choice. But you gave her all the reasons to go on a date with you. She just happened to not want to. So, hey, more power to her. Go live her life. As far as the also-rans, a couple of these guys have never gotten to run, if we want to use that analogy. I mean, they haven't. Like, you can't judge a guy that's coached at Temple and Baylor for not having won a national title when he's in his mid-40s. Or being, I mean, the same in Iowa State. I mean, it's just Central Michigan and Iowa State. If you're talking about the two guys that Aslan and I talk about the most, man, I think that there's nothing about those guys that scream also ran to me. I think we can't discount how hard it is to win at places like that and to build a consistent winner. And what he's done, what they've both done, has just been really remarkable. I mean, and it's not just a one-year wonder. It's not like Baylor has just gotten a couple of lucky breaks. Otherwise, Matt Rule's just kind of an average coach. He won 10 games twice at Temple. And same with Campbell. I mean, it's not like, the thing that you're talking about with Campbell earlier, the one thing that I think when you talk about in hindsight, we can all use hindsight on the Taggart hire. The one thing that I've said, the difference between him and these two guys, in my opinion, is that he only coached 1 year in a big conference. And in a few of those games, they got absolutely murdered. Just murdered. And I know he didn't have his quarterback, but basically it turned into, if he had his quarterback, they were a competitive team and they would win games. If he didn't for like 3 or 4 games, I think it was 4 games maybe that Herbert missed, man, I think that average margin of defeat was 40-something points. I mean, they just had no chance. And it's also, it's Oregon. Oregon's had some recent history of success. Florida State fans remember. Baylor and Iowa State. I mean, Baylor had before that fiasco, but once that fiasco happened, and I'll be honest, I thought Baylor was out of our lives forever. I really did. I was like, okay, well, that was a weird 6-year blip where Baylor was relevant football-wise, but they're going to go back to being what they've always been in my lifetime, which is an also-ran. But no, they're really good. They're going to be a women's basketball school. But he's got them back to being really good. So either way, I wouldn't argue. I don't think Florida State fans could really nitpick with either one of those two guys, because I think to me, those are about the best two that you that would be on that list, in my opinion. There are other guys, I get it. A Memphis coach, Mark Stoops before that was Nick. Mm-hmm. I get the being wary about those. But these two, man, I just think, what else could you be looking for if you're a Florida State fan?
I think that's where that's kind of the argument in terms of that's a really good way he kind of phrased the question was which candidate will bruise our egos the least, and it goes back to kind of where are you in terms of being a Florida State fan? Are you the Florida State fan that thinks that it's absolutely the best job in the world and you'd be an absolute idiot to not take the job and Bob Stoops is stupid, Or do you have like this crazy inferiority complex? You're like, well, listen, Jimbo said we sucked and we don't have the money. We should be lucky with whoever we get. Or do you float in that middle, maybe a little bit closer to realizing to what kind of like Kendall Brow said, it's like a top 10, top 15 job. But it's impossible to get. I don't know. Like when you're a top 10, top 15 job, I don't think you're going to get like a top 10 head coach. You have to get a guy that you hope projects to being that at some point. Like you're not going to pull guys away. Who knows? Maybe they do pull James Franklin away. I find that hard to believe. But like, yeah, you're not going to pull Dabo away. You're not pulling Lincoln Riley away from his job. You're probably not pulling PJ Fleck away from his job, and they're not a top 10 team in terms of tradition and ceiling and things like that. But yeah, I mean, my ego would not be bruised with any of these guys. If we got Stoops, I'd been hurt a little bit. Like Mike Norvell, to your point, those are guys that I'd be like, man, this is going to be a hard sort of inverse property, transitive property of trying to be like, well, he did this, that at that place. So if he gets this, I would have been talking myself into thinking it was a good hire. But these guys, no, man, like Matt Campbell, Matt Rule, to your point, like these programs are nothing, especially Iowa State. Say what you will about what Taggart did at Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky won a national title. That was at the FCS level. But when Taggart left, Jeff Brom was doing well there. Bobby Petruno was doing well there. Tyson Helton's doing well at Western Kentucky now. They're rolling along. At USF, Jim Leavitt had that thing rolling. And you just got to not trip over yourself to make USF win 8 or 9 games. Like doing what you're doing in Ames, doing what they're doing at Baylor, in Waco, coming off what they came off of, I think that's definitely more than being an also ran. CFSU 42 says, wake up. Wake up. Any news or opinion, we're going to have to give opinion because I don't think there's news, on Brian Kelly. See, we should have thrown this name out on the program Thursday because we went over every single name that was kind of out there. I couldn't imagine a scenario where Brian Kelly would come to Florida State at all.
I mean, yeah, why would he?
Yeah.
Why would he? By the way, speaking of a coach, like, when you were just talking about all those coaches and what would excite and bruise egos, what would excite fans or I guess bruise egos the least, just look around at what you call the great. If you just take a step back and think of like the top 12 jobs in America, traditionally, historically, you're talking about USC, Notre Dame, Alabama, LSU, Florida State, Florida, Georgia maybe in the mix. I might be, that might be my blinders on there, but Clemson, teams like that. Well, look, I mean, so Clemson hired a position coach. Georgia hired, their last 2 hires were a coordinator from Florida State and a coordinator from Alabama. Florida hired a guy from Mississippi State before that hiring the guy from Colorado State. And before that, hiring the guy from a head coach in waiting at Texas, and then the head coach at Utah. Like, you're not going to just get the Notre Dame head coach. That's not how this works. That's not how this world works when you're hiring coaches, even at top 10 schools, unless you're Alabama and you can go get Nick Saban. But other than that, it just doesn't happen. LSU, when Saban left, hired the Oklahoma State head coach, and then they hired an interim to become their head coach. Texas hired the Louisville coach. USC hired an interim. And before that hired, I guess you could say, the Tennessee coach with Kiffin. So that was kind of a big hire going to get in the big boy school. But other than that, this is just how the world works, right? You get guys from lesser tier schools because they're trying to climb the ladder to get to a place like Florida State. But you're not going to get somebody that's already near the top of the ladder to come over. It's always going to be, in my opinion, somebody that's on the ascent, somebody that's on the climb. Just that's how the world of college football has always worked.
Engineer Noel 1819. Is it possible to technically name one of the throwaway coaches, say Harlan Barnett, as head coach for the Florida game so that 4 Odell doesn't become 4 Wondell? I would love that to happen.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe Odell gets sick, quote unquote, gets sick or gets a bout or something.
Yeah.
And has to stay in the. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you could do that. I think Harlan would be willing to take the hit there.
Big Steve-O 22, gentlemen, I don't have a football or sports comment, really. The other members have asked the good questions. I just want to thank you for providing us with great content, whether it's sports or your personal lives. I look forward to the podcast every day. As you know, my kid does have a heart defect and will require open heart surgery at the age of 4 months. So listening to this podcast helps get my mind away from the stress of life, even for an hour. Once again, gentlemen, thank you. Damn, man. Well, we have to do a show.
That's very sweet.
We have to do 2 shows now, Corey. Keep his mind off of this thing. Yeah, Big Stevo has been writing in. We do appreciate it, man. Just 2 guys talking into a microphone. One knows a little more than the other, but glad we're able to keep your mind off something so so huge in your life, man. Good vibes sending your way for sure, friend.
Absolutely, man. We're thinking of you. I can't even. I know people when they they hear stuff like that, they might say, I can only imagine what you're going through. Yeah. And no, I can't imagine that at all. Just can't imagine it. That's tough to even think about. So we're definitely thinking of you, man. And anything we can do to help, even being idiots for 45 minutes a day, we'll do it.
Jared.
Hey, by the way, how was your trip? Did you go on a trip this weekend? Because you didn't go to Athens.
I did not go to Athens. I went to like this work trip for this young woman. Sorry. I got blocked by somebody on one of the apps because I mentioned I had gone out on a date with a girl. And they were like, what do you mean you went out on a date with a girl? I'm like, I don't know. I went on a date with somebody. Like, well, how old was she? I was like, I don't know, like 27. She's like, well, girl is a child. What you went out with was a young woman. I'm like, good luck out there. And then she blocked me. So those people exist in the world. That's pretty cool. But yeah, so she had some sort of fundraiser, charity event thing outside of Orlando. So I did go with her. It was a fun time. We actually ended up going to Top Golf the next day. So it was like an overnight trip kind of a thing. Don't know if there is like a long-term thing there, but it was fun. I became adventurous. I got off the couch on a Saturday instead of going to Doak Campbell or just sitting here watching football all day, and got to go out and give some money to a good charitable cause, and then got to play some Top Golf. So it's pretty good.
All right, and you'll probably you might maybe see her sometime on Thanksgiving week.
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. I think she's going home. I'm going home as well. We might do some sort of faux Thanksgiving, like on a Tuesday maybe. Not sure. To be decided.
Right.
TBD. TBD.
I like what I'm hearing, though. I like what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I know you're liking to take it slow, but I like what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I like the already familiar enough, feeling good about things to go on a trip together.
I'm just crazy, Corey. I just throw caution to the wind because I'm a man.
Hey, man,
what's the worst that's going to happen to me?
YOLO.
Yeah. Also, we went to a pet land because she saw a Pomeranian at this charity event and was like, oh, my God, I want a Pomeranian. So the next day we went to a pet land in Orlando, and she started looking at puppies, which made me realize there's no way I'm going to be able to ever have a dog. Did you see somebody, by the way, commented the other day on our show? I think she had like one of the most epic posts in Warchant history. I think she's a grandmother, and she kind of she had this really like stirring, rousing speech about being a Florida State fan, and everybody came out the woodwork to give her a like. And she totally came off the top rope on us and was saying for us to never talk about dogs and cats because we don't know what we're talking about, and we just make people who treat dogs and cats as part of their families think less of us when we open our mouths and talk about dog and cat ownership. So maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that last part.
Oh, well, I do have a child. I treat him like family. I hope I'm allowed to talk about that.
Jared R. John, wake up, boys. I keep hearing Matt Campbell's name, which I'm a fan of, but has FSU made any kind of contact with him or anybody in his camp? I know he still has a season to finish at Iowa State, so they probably have not spoken to him directly. Just wanted to know if FSU has possibly talked to any of his representatives. Thank y'all for the quality content. I think one of Gene's updates a few weeks ago made some sort of reference to the potential or the likelihood that there had been some sort of communication between the two sides. But yeah, to the point, do we know if they sat down directly in front of each other over dinner in Des Moines and talked about things? That we don't know. But I'm sure there's been feelers put out, and it's had to have been reciprocated because.
And here's the thing with someone like Campbell, in my opinion, is that you're not fighting other colleges, and you're not fighting Iowa State. It's not like the guy's going to be like, you know what, I can't turn my back on these kids in Ames. He's looking to move on, I'm sure. He's not going to spend the rest of his career in Ames, Iowa. If he's any kind of competitor, and I don't mean that, I guess, negatively, it sounds negatively, But I assume he got in this profession to win championships, and you're not going to do it at Iowa State. There's just a reality there. But you never know what his agent is telling him about feelers for potential NFL openings. If he's that hot a commodity, he might want to wait it out for that. I don't know if he has any interest in being an NFL coach, if that's his ultimate goal is to be an NFL coach. I never thought that was the case with Jimbo. Jimbo to me never struck me as an NFL guy. He just loves college football. He just grew up on it. He loves it. He knows it. I don't think he would have. It would be odd to me if he ever coached the NFL. But Matt Campbell, I know nothing about as far as his aspirations. So I think there's a chance if Florida State offered Matt Campbell, it's not like he'd say no because he wants the job at some other college. He might, or he wants to stay in Iowa State. It's because he wants to see if he can be an NFL head coach, right? Wouldn't that be the only thing that would make any bit of sense?
Yeah, I buy that. Thad 10.
And also, some people aren't pet people. That doesn't mean we're bad human beings. And I want Aslan to get a cat. I think it would be great for him. Now, I say it because I thought it would be good bait for a date, but I don't want him to abuse the cat.
Oh.
Once he gets a cat, I want him to feed him and clothe him and love him. Well, not clothe him. He's got enough clothes. But, yeah, no, I didn't grow up with pets. I don't judge people that have pets. But we didn't, there's some people that aren't really pet people. If I was going to have a pet, I would have a dog, not a cat, because I do think dogs feel more like a part of the family. But, I've got Brady.
All right.
And Stephanie's got a cat. That's plenty.
Yeah. You suggested to me that, we got a big backyard. You can just kind of let the dog run free. She also commented something about the lines of, people don't leave their dogs out anymore. And that's the thing. Like, when I grew up, treating somebody like a dog.
I never know they do, because they're barking at me all the time when I take my walk.
Growing up, when you tell people, you're treating me like a dog, that was like a bad thing. And now, yeah, you treat me like a dog. It means, you bring me in, you house me, you feed me the finest foods, you check my health on a monthly basis. Yeah, man, dogs are absolutely pampered. But when I grew up, you'd go to people's houses and they'd have a dog just running around the backyard. They'd open the sliding glass door for a minute. The dog comes in and makes a commotion, and you put him outside and he starts running wild. But you do that now, it's like letting your kid go out, and stay out past the street lights coming on. It's crazy. It's being neglectful.
Yeah, you don't see it a lot. I would assume doghouse makers almost have to be out of business, don't they?
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of dog houses. I mean, you're right. When I grew up, everybody that had a dog, they had a dog house.
Yep.
And they were outside at least half the time, except maybe in the winter they would bring them in.
Right.
But yeah, what are doghouse makers doing now? They had to move on to something else, I guess.
Yeah. All right, Thad with 2 Ds, 1041. What's your take on Mike Norvell? Some people are quick to give him the thumbs down or see us go after unproven coordinators who have zero head coaching experience over someone who has been a head coach and OC at the Power 5 level. I see some even call for Satterfield at Louisville, which I don't have a problem with, but he was the head coach at a school in the Sun Belt before he was at Louisville. So I don't see why some people are up in arms about Norvell being a candidate. What is your opinion on him as a possible candidate? I think we gave him the thumbs down on the show last week.
Yeah, but we wouldn't know. There's no way either one of us could know, or anybody listening to this would know what kind of job he would do at Florida State. He might be the next Nick Saban. We have no idea. It's just when you're talking about not even a splash higher, but a known commodity. To me, he would be almost the least, out of the names that keep popping up, he would be the least known commodity because he's won some at Memphis. But that's nothing like what he would be getting himself into if he was at Florida State. It just wouldn't be. That doesn't mean he can't do it. Everybody's got to start somewhere. He might be awesome. But I don't think the fan base would start doing cartwheels right after hiring a guy essentially from South Florida. I know he had the 1 year at Oregon, but essentially Willie Taggart got hired because of what he did at South Florida. So after hiring a guy from South Florida that ended up not being a good fit at all, you then hire a guy from Memphis. I think Florida State fans are expecting at least, an up-and-coming Power 5 program from a Power 5 conference, I think is what they'd hope. Their head coach could be or a current coordinator at a elite program, like, say, Clemson.
Right. Well, another thing, too, is that Norvell didn't transform Memphis the way that Matt Campbell's transformed Iowa State, the way that Matt Rule is bringing Baylor back from the brink. It was Justin Fuente who did that. And Justin Fuente, quite frankly, has not really looked all that impressive at Virginia Tech. They've kind of bounced back, and they're going to finish out a pretty strong season this year. Well, can they win the Coastal? Has anybody won the Coastal yet? Are they up for it? They might. Maybe them in Virginia are going to be playing for it.
I think Virginia Tech, if they win, they're in, right?
Yeah, I would think so. So yeah, I mean, like that's so you kind of have a comp. You know, when you talk about the draft, it's always about comps. Like compare this player to that player. We kind of start looking at coaches and you project guys, and like you look at a guy like I look at a guy like Mike Norvell, and I think, all right, he took over a pretty good situation. The Justin Fuente left him, and he's kept it going, which is a good thing. But Fuente really hasn't taken off, and now I know it's Virginia Tech, it's not Florida State. But you know, it's like they won the Coastal's first year, and they haven't done so. You know, years 2 and 3, they might be able to do it this season, but. Again, just nothing that really, makes my teeth sweat. And this sounds stupid, too. I don't know. I just look at these coaches. I look at the way they look. I look at the way they talk. And, I got to believe in them. That's, and I got to believe in somebody, man. By the way, shout out to Scott Satterfield. Louisville's, 2-10 last year? Absolute dumpster fire. And he's got them, they're going to be guaranteed of a winning season. So, good for him, man. I wonder if maybe this is all smokescreen to get him.
Wins, right?
Yeah, maybe this is all smokescreen to get Scott Satterfield, the friend of the program that we floated out in the beginning of this whole nonsense. That's sarcasm.
I mean, I will say it's been really impressive because that dumpster fire was raging worse than Florida State's when Willie took over.
Yep.
Because that was an all-time bad culture run by seemingly an all-time bad person. And for him to turn it around like that, 7 or 8 wins or whatever they end up with, and we're really close to winning in Tallahassee. If they don't throw that terrible interception, they'd probably win that game. Remember Louisville just got blown out by most teams last year. So for him to bring that, I mean, that culture does matter, man. To be able to flip it that quickly is really impressive. Doesn't mean he needs to be the head coach here, or doesn't. I'm not saying either way. I'm just saying kudos to him because that was a really nice job.
Also, he's proof positive just how stupid college football is this year because they got housed by Miami, who then loses to FIU. Nothing makes sense.
Yeah, man. How about that, by the way? How about that? That's not a good look for anyone.
I saw people on Twitter call it a program-killing loss. My friend who's a Miami guy, just absolutely beside himself. Yeah, that's Ira kind of, the great Ira Schofel wrote a column or wrote a story on Sunday morning about, where Florida State's currently positioned. And when you look around the nation or you look around the state, I guess on a micro level, things aren't that bad or there's not that much ground to kind of make up. Yeah, how do you lose to FIU? And handily. It wasn't fluky, one play, crazy confluence of events. You got beat. 60 minutes, you got dominated by FIU. Hey.
Yeah, it's just goof. I don't know if it's a program killer. I've been on record for a long time that I don't think they're ever going to be. They can't get back to what they were. It's just this. It's the modern era of Miami football, man. They're just okay. That's the best they can ever be. They might have some smoke and mirrors and some flashes, like a few years ago when they were number 3 in the country, but had won 3 games in almost like miracle fashion. But the truth was they were just another 7. They were a 7-5 team that happened to get lucky a few times. And I feel like that's what Miami's going to be in perpetuity, it feels like. There doesn't feel to be any real hope. Save, throwing $45 million at Nick Saban to come back to the city of Miami, there doesn't seem to be any real hope that program is ever going to get back to national relevance. They've been in ACC for, what has it been, 16 years now, 15 years?
Yeah.
And they haven't won the title once. They've never come close, actually. They played in one conference championship game since they've been in the conference. They're in the Coastal.
All Canes Conference, Corey. All Canes Conference.
They're in the Coastal, man. It's embarrassing. They're in the Coastal, and they've played in one conference championship game. They can't beat the likes of Virginia, Virginia Tech, Pitt, Duke. I know they have to play Florida State every year, which wasn't real fun for them there for about 7 straight years. But, golly, they don't have to play Clemson every year. They get to play in the Coastal, and they've just been bud average ever since they got into the conference.
I still think they could maybe. You're always a good coaching hire away. They just haven't hired any good coaches, man. It's been, Larry
Well, at one
Coker.
point, but if you keep, it's been like 5 in a row now. At some point, maybe it's not the coaches, right?
But none of those guys have gone
some
and done
point-
anything anywhere. I mean, no, I think it's I don't want to call it bad luck. They just have had really bad searches that have fleshed out bad coaches. I do think if they got like a Matt Campbell, I'd be nervous. If they got a Matt Rule, I'd be nervous. I think a coach like that could make that place. I mean, Manny Diaz is unproven. There's nothing about Manny Diaz that made me scared. There's nothing about Al Golden. I know he was kind of maybe the first guy that helped turn Temple around. But yeah, I mean, like Randy Shannon, like these things, we're trying to harken back to the old days and try to get a guy that knows the ins and outs. And then they think Manny's the same way. Like Manny knows how to play ball down in Miami and get recruits. He doesn't because they're not even recruiting all that well. But if they got a good coach, I think they could. Listen, there's too many good players within 20 miles of that campus that you can't stumble into 4 or 5 of them within a 3-4 year span of recruiting. They could be like the Dalvin Cooks of the world, the Lamar Jacksons, the Jerry Judys. They all live down there. Just got to get 2 of them 3 years in a row in a signing class, and then you're back on top. But that's obviously
but that's
way
all you
easier
got to do
said
is
than
sign the guys away from Alabama. Like that, it's not happening. It's just really hard to recruit there because of the facilities. They live in a great part of the country for football players. But man, it's hard to consistently get great players to come there because you're so woefully behind when up against the other schools you're recruiting against. So you're left with a lot of average. But you're right. They might, if they got somebody that was a great offensive genius, their offense has just been trash for a long time, really.
Yeah.
And they've got to figure that out. They need to get an offensive minded coach, in my opinion. Not the Mark Richt want to settle for 4 field goals type of coach either, like a guy that just wants to throw it around all the time. And by the way, I also want people to know this, because now I'm self-conscious. I don't judge people for having pets, and when their pets die, I don't be like, hey man, get over it. That's not a kid. I mourn with them. I send condolence cards. I say I'm really sorry for your loss. I know pets are treated like family. I just thought Aslan should get a cat for that reason, and he'd be rescuing a cat. So that's a good thing, right? Come on, Aslan, right? You with me?
Noles MG4, wake up! My number 1 podcast. I have 2 questions for you. First is, how will this coaching search be a win, in your opinion, of the remaining coaches on the hot boards? Second question, what would be the best case scenario for a bowl game to begin the streak again? Gator Bowl would be mine. Thank you for keeping us entertained and well-informed. 5 stars always. Appreciate that, Noles MG4. Let's work backwards to forwards. Bowl game, yeah, I'm still in Gasparilla mode. Want to go back home. I think they would have to beat Florida to get to the Gator Bowl. I just can't see a 6-6 team getting a bid to play in the Gator Bowl, no matter how much Jacksonville Power Brokers want it. I'll take Gasparilla. Give me UCF. We'll hang half 100 on them, and then we'll begin from there.
Is that a possibility?
I would think so. I think Gasparilla is like AAC, ACC, and maybe Conference USA are all involved. So maybe FAU. We can play late.
I know Detroit is still in the running. Shreveport, obviously, there's some. I would think Detroit and Shreveport seem like the ones that are mentioned the most on these bowl projection lists that come out every Sunday. So, yeah, but all those bowl projections are taking into account Florida State losing to Florida. If Florida State beats Florida, then I do think it changes. I think the Gator Bowl becomes maybe at least a legitimate option, if not like a probability.
Yeah, I'm trying to actually pull that up as we speak. How about you answer that first part of the question, Corey, while I try to pull up the latest bowl projections? What would be a win in your eyes? How can the coaching search be a win, in your opinion, of the remaining coaches on the hot board?
Yeah, I mean, the ones we've talked about a lot, I think those would be wins. I do think a high-profile coordinator from the state of South Carolina would be a win. But again, it's just my opinion. Like none of us know. That's why grading these hires. But I was all aboard with Willie. I thought Willie was going to be a great hire. So what do I know? And I wasn't sure about Jimbo. I knew Jimbo would be better than the end of Bowden's run, because it was just somebody that was, no offense to him, but just somebody that was engaged every day and could modernize the program. So I knew Jimbo would lead them in the right direction, but I don't think I expected him to reach those heights, and I didn't expect Taggart to reach those lows. So none of us have any idea. It's all guesswork. That's why you want to, in my opinion, you want to go on the ones that you think have the most proven track record of building a program and maintaining a program. That's why I've never been those coaches in the NCAA tournament that they coach at Siena, and then
Right.
they pull off a shot. They're a 14 and they beat a 3 in the first round, and then all of a sudden they get to go. They go to a Power 5 school, not Power 5, whatever. A Division I, a big boy basketball school.
Yeah.
It's like, man, just because of one season or one game, like I just think you want to use you wouldn't hire Matt Rule just because they beat Texas or they won 10 games this year. That to me that's foolhardy. It's one game, it's one season. Judge him on what he's been able to build in multiple places. That to me is the sign of a guy that you can really trust to do it over the long haul, and especially if he's done it at a place like Baylor, playing against who he has to play against, or Iowa State for that matter, playing against who he has to play against. I think those are but two really good choices.
Would you rather have James Franklin or Brent Venables?
I think Franklin, because he's done it. He's been a head coach, and I'm talking about if I was the AD at Florida State, and both those guys came to me and said, I want the job. Franklin, because he's done it, and I know that he wants to do it, and I know that he can do it. But Venables would at least make Clemson worse. So that might be reason enough alone to do it.
Yeah, man. A win for me is one of the Matts, obviously. James Franklin is a win. Brent Venables is a win. Those are the names that we've heard that are out there. And maybe there's some sort of sneaky NFL coordinator candidate out there, but there's no one that comes to mind that I'm like, oh, wow, actually, now I think about it, him as a head coach at Florida State, boom, headshot, winner. So, yeah, there's plenty of chips on the roulette board for David Coburn as this thing keeps spinning and the ball keeps clacking around. Yeah, man, this was never Bob Stoops or bust. I mean, they went after him in that sort of mind frame, it feels like, and just in terms of what they probably offered him. But I've never been of that opinion because it was going to be a hard thing. And it was a pie-in-the-sky sort of idea from the get-go. But props to this university, props to this administration and the power brokers for going after it. It takes a lot of hubris to go after a guy like Bob Stoops, especially after you just, whatever happened with Jimbo, there has to be a certain part of the coaching fraternity that looks at Jimbo Fisher leaving here, and yeah, they probably resent Jimbo and things of that nature. But I'm sure there has to be a certain part of the coaching fraternity segment that's like, damn, Florida State let that guy leave, or they didn't give him all he wanted, and look what he did for them. And then you see a guy like Taggart. Obviously, that doesn't work out, and you might think it was prematurely. The ripcord was pulled on, that sort of stuff. Guys look at all that kind of stuff, and for them to be able to pull off a guy like Bob Stoops with all that kind of hovering over them, that's huge. That's a huge hack you're taking. And for a little bit there, it seemed like it was going to happen. But just because it's not, I don't think it's a failure, and I don't think anybody is a also-ran. ESPN says, Corey, that there's two dudes who do the bowl projections. One of them has FSU playing FAU in Shreveport. The other has Michigan State playing Florida State in Detroit. So that could be like Harlan goes home with the loser game.
Yeah, sure. Man, in Detroit, that's a road game.
Yeah. That'd be a
road
tough
game. All right. Yeah. All right. I didn't even know Michigan State was bowl eligible.
Yeah. All right, last one. Several comments, questions from the one and the only Maxwell Gibbs. I know I said I'd never say it again, but for old time's sake, Nuck if you buck, Aslan and Corey. Regarding the next head coach of the program, I want Odell. I don't want Mark Stoops. I don't want Mike Norvell. I don't want Matt Campbell. Sorry, Jeff Cameron. Why are people freaking out over Big Game Bob saying no? It's not the end of the world. Again, it just, it's the fandom. You think you're rooting for the best team ever, and anybody would be stupid to say no. I think that's why people are freaking out. I get it. Again, to what I just said 3 minutes ago, I also understand why he would say no, and I don't think that anybody's worse for the wear or anybody's in the wrong on it. Corey, what do you feel more foolish for saying Maryland will be a problem or Willie Taggart will recruit circles around Nick Saban in Alabama? Ouch! Did you say that?
If I said the latter, I had to have been, obviously that was in jest.
Okay.
There's no way I would have said that for real. Nobody recruits circles around Nick Saban. I might have said he could recruit with Nick Saban, but nobody's going to just make Saban look like a recruiting idiot. No, Maryland could be a problem. Probably that's going to be on my tombstone, I think.
I was with you.
So that's fine. No, we all make a lot of people. Well, not a lot of people, but people were, and we all make mistakes. Jeff Cameron said a lot crazier stuff than that. He says crazier stuff than that on a daily basis, and that's just the one time. That's the one time I've ever been wrong. It felt weird. That's why I've never done it again.
Yeah, I was always so cautiously optimistic in 13 until after the Miami game. Or I think after the Clemson game, I finally, opened my heart up to the possibility of this all happening. But yeah, going to the Maryland game, I'm like, man, this is like a legitimate team, and they're 25th. This could be a little bit of a problem. I remember just listening to Seminole headlines in my office in Mississippi and be like, yeah, I agree with Corey. And then I'm like, wow, look at us. Who'd have thought we'd be here?
Yeah.
Not me.
Yeah.
Not me. Do you want to offer any opinion on why people are freaking out over Big Game Bob saying no, Corey, or do you not want to buy into that? Maybe he hasn't said no. Are you a Stoop truther?
I wouldn't think no, but I wouldn't think anybody that's really rational would freak out about it, if that's the term that was used, because, again, it's Bob Stoops. It's like freaking out because Mila Kunis said no. I'm going to keep using that analogy, but yeah, I don't think people are freaking out by it, right? Why would you freak out by it? Because it's Bob Stoops. Like if Mike Norvell, is it Mike or Mark?
Mike.
If Mike Norvell, I always get the Norvells confused.
Right.
If he said no because he wanted to ride it out at Memphis, he just feels like that's a better long-term career plan for him. That would freak people out. But Bob Stoops deciding to just stay in the tequila business and coach some XFL team next spring, I mean, I don't think that's anything worth freaking out about. I'm not saying it was never a long shot. It felt like a real shot there for a while. But that was the one guy at the top of the list. Go make a run at him. If he says no, what's the worst that can happen, right?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. You made your play. You took your shot. It didn't work out. Okay, now let's move on to people that are actual head coaches right now.
Yeah, it goes back to Random John's, analogy, metaphor at the beginning of the show about it's like a Tinder match, You swipe, and it's like, oh, wow, Look at this. Mila Kunis wants to go out with me. You're like, Mila, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you out to Zaxby's. We're going to have chicken fingers. Sure. We're going to kiss under the moonlight at Cascades Park afterwards. And she's like, oh, my God, that's all I've ever wanted. And then you knock on the door, and she's like, it actually changed my mind. You don't be the guy that starts.
You had a cat. You could have told her you had a cat.
No, that might have been able to sell.
Right? And that you really loved the cat. It wasn't just like a ploy to attract women, but you actually had a cat that you loved.
Yeah. And
you groomed it. Yeah. Man, I'm telling you, that's your play. You need to change your Tinder profile pic to you holding the cat. Like, remember the Bo Pelini thing?
Yeah,
It needs to be you in a Christmas sweater, looking off to the side, holding a cat. That's your profile pic for Christmas.
No, this actually makes it more difficult. Like, girls don't like guys who like cats. They don't. There's no. Very few.
I don't think that's accurate.
It's totally accurate.
I don't think that's accurate at all.
No. Guys with cats are weird to most women. Yeah, this is not me helping.
Multiple cats with like 6 cats. Oh, well, then get a picture with you and a German Shepherd.
No, I'm not doing this to impress anybody. What? I don't need to do this to impress anybody. I'm doing this because I just want some sort of
Oh, you want company?
Yeah, I just want somebody to yell at.
Then a cat is definitely cat's right. A cat's the right play for you, man.
Yeah, just some independent thinker goes along, does his own thing. Like I can go to Orlando for 2 days and don't have to worry about it. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to market myself. I don't need help marketing myself. I just need help closing the deal, man. But that's neither here nor there. Hey, I'm going to go talk to Odell Hagan, so eat your heart out, everybody, and you as well, Corey Clark. We'll reconvene. We'll adjourn for another program on.
Hey, shout out real quick, though. We need to shout out the FSU soccer team. Came from behind to beat South Florida on Sunday to advance in the NCAA tournament. They've now reached the Elite Eight.
Ooh.
And that's the 13th time in the last 15 years they've reached the Elite Eight.
Man, what would I do without you?
I mean, he's literally Krikorian's one of the better coaches of any sport in America at anything. He's just incredible what he's built at Florida State. But anyway, so they play. I think on Friday for a spot in the Final Four, which they call the College Cup in soccer. But if they win on Friday, they advance to the Final Four. So congrats to them, and the basketball team won on Saturday against a bad team.
Did you get to watch any of the St. Francis game? I didn't.
No. No, couldn't do it.
Sorry, everybody. We'll talk more about that at some other point as well. The basketball team, that is. Thanks for listening. It's Corey Mazon. We'll be back with another edition of Wake Up Warchant tomorrow. It's presented by Zaxby's, of course. Have a great one.